And time now is 9:16, and it's time once again for the Sideline Report with our very own Todd Griffin. And he has in the studio with him this morning a very special guest, Daniel Cortner, who is the head coach of the Caldwell County Tiger Volleyball team. So I'll turn it over to you, Todd.
How's it going? Good morning.
Hey, it's going great. How about yourself?
Well, I was having a bit of a Friday night videos flash back there while listening to Billy Joel, but
Yeah.
we're all good now.
Well, good. Well,
Having a little phone issues this morning. We've got Chris Evans of the Crittenden Press lined up to talk to us about the Crittenden County Rocket football team a little bit later on, so hopefully we can get that squared away and get him on before the show's over. But, you know, we hustled Daniel Cortner in and a chance to talk some volleyball, and we'll be talking some football because we have a couple of top 5 lists that we'll be getting to just a little bit later. But first of all, Daniel, thanks for coming in, and thank you for being here early today.
yeah, you really saved us, whether you knew it or not.
The Lady Tiger volleyball team, though, having a really great season, and you guys have had some off time the last week or so, and with a little break in the schedule. So what have you guys been working on getting ready for this weekend's big tournament up at Hardin County?
The first thing we worked on was getting healthy. Once everybody gets back to school, they all kind of trade sicknesses around, and it seemed like a good mega sickness kind of ran through our team. So we kind of had a couple days off. I even caught it, so got a good chance to rest. Assistant coach Casey got married while we were on the break, so got everybody to kind of have a good relaxing weekend there. And main thing we've really worked on is just we know when we go play good teams, they're going to keep us out of system. So we're trying to get back into being in control and being calm while it looks like a little bit of chaos, and a little bit of panic. Well,
the tournament this weekend is going to be big. I think part of that's at North Hardin and part of it's at Central Hardin, and there's a lot of good teams in there, and you're going to see some ranked teams probably up there too.
I know there's, of last poll, I'm pretty sure there's 4, if not 5. If you throw in Lakota West, they're about the 2 or 3 time defending champion out of Cincinnati area. There's a ton of talent in this tournament. It's grown every year, and he's done a good job of kind of eliminating teams that go up there and don't win a game. And pick up a stronger opponent the last couple of years. So this is becoming one of the premier tournaments in the state.
So you guys have 3 games in pool play, and then at least 1 game, I'm guessing, in the tournament after that.
Correct. And then we should be able to go down to it. They'll have a consolation bracket if we should have to.
Okay.
We should get 5 guaranteed.
Okay.
For the weekend. So whichever flight we end up in, Christian Academy Louisville, Cal out of has always been strong. They're kind of fed by some of the better clubs up in Louisville, and Coach Patty up there has always been strong. That's going to be our biggest test to get into gold. Friday night and Saturday morning to get into that gold round, and then every team there is going to be stacked from there.
Well, the schedule got changed just a little bit on you, and I know you were going to play Apollo, and I think they're ranked, and the schedule got moved around, so they're not in your pool anymore, which should help you as far as getting into a higher bracket, but at the same time, you wanted to see some good teams too.
Right, and we do have Apollo on the schedule the following week. We go up to Owensboro on that Thursday night. But you go up there to play good competition, and when a team dropped, and they kind of had to redraw some things up. So, but it was a difference in a chance of going to gold or all the way down to bronze with 3 pretty good teams in the mix right there.
So it's a 16-team tournament, and everybody gets to play 3 games in pool play, 2 games on Friday and a game Saturday morning for you guys. Right. And then they'll break it down into 4 different brackets for championship round action, I guess, Saturday afternoon.
Correct, and it'll go from gold, silver, bronze, and then copper. So gold is of course where you want, but even in silver, there's going to be a lot of good teams in it.
And you mentioned Christian Academy of Louisville. I think they're ranked, as we mentioned.
They were. Apollo was 22. The new polls will come out sometime this afternoon. They were 22nd, and Cal was 23rd. And then you throw in Central Hardin and Bryan Station and Bullitt East were all also ranked. So there's several good schools that we'll get a chance to mix it up with.
And your pool has Christian Academy, North Hardin, I believe, and Graves County. John Hardin, that's right.
So, and we saw them up at Bluegrass games and have developed a real good friendship with Graves County's new coach, first time new coach there, and have seen his team play a couple, and they've only got, about like me, they've only got about 8 or 9 kids that they dress. So they're a real good young feisty bunch up there.
Coming up next week, an actual home match. Tuesday, the team is at home, and I'm kind of excited about that because I haven't seen the team play since like the first week of the season.
It's been a while, and I appreciate everybody's patience. It's always good when we're away at a tournament and and get you the scores and see the response the community's had. But in order to take the ladies to go put in front of competition, unfortunately teams aren't coming to Western Kentucky. And in order to go play the private schools in Louisville and to go to a tournament like that this weekend, we've got to put some miles on the bus. And if I can go get those tests early in the year and then kind of have a built-in break like we did now, and now we're ready to come home, I don't know that I have come home with as good a feeling in the last couple of years with the product we're putting on there. It is a high power. It's a show to come watch. Tuesday night when we play Caldwell County, it's going to be an impressive show.
The team is 9-2, I believe, going up to the Hardin County tournament, and like I said, I think there's about 4 different gyms they're using for that to get all those games in, and then the big home game coming up. So mention that because I want people to come out. I always mention that the best kept secret in Caldwell County is the excitement of the volleyball program and the excitement of going out to a game. And you guys don't always draw the biggest crowds because, this time of year crowds are kind of split between volleyball and soccer and middle school sports, but it's always a very loud and boisterous crowd.
Well, and it's a fast-paced game, so the crowd kind of oohs and ahs. It carries into the next point. For years, people have kind of put the female athlete into a box, and every year I just keep telling them, hey, go be an athlete, go be an athlete. And I've got some girls now that are running as fast and as high-powered offense as some of the top schools in the state. So they've really bought into it's okay to fail. If you're trying something that's high level, high tempo, it's okay to fail because tomorrow we'll succeed at it.
Well, you mentioned the top 25, and of course I found it interesting earlier this season that you guys went and beat Louisville Presentation, and they actually went up in the polls.
It is a coaches poll, and now with a little insider information on the KVCA coaches poll, I figured out the first weekend, I think they said only 25 coaches turned it in.
Oh, okay.
So you're kind of handcuffed by, did 24 of those not read?
Yeah.
Or see where we're at on that, and it is, it's an unbiased poll. You send your numbers in, and we tally it and send it back out. But they actually, the week after, they did go up in the polls, and Holy Cross fell out.
Yeah.
And Holy Cross, beat Collins, and there's a whole basket weave here of who won in that one day, and it's just kind of the way it fell out afterwards.
Sometimes voting on the polls is a little difficult. I try to vote in the AP high school poll each week, whether it's football or basketball, and you may think it's easy when you look at it, and people look at the polls and always wonder why one team moves up or down or whatever, if they win or lose. But when I'm trying to vote, it's usually pretty easy. You have a top 10, in each class. Those first 5 or 6 teams are usually pretty obvious, at least to me. You can move a few people around, maybe one spot, but it's always figuring those last 3 or 4 teams, and especially like 9 and 10, because whoever else is in running for that. Well, if they don't make 9 or 10, well, they're not going to make it at all. So it's a tough prospect, and everybody certainly has different opinions on which team is better. And it's really difficult to compare teams that play across a great big state, and you don't have much to compare each team to.
Right. And when you get into ours, when you have Assumption High School out of Louisville, you pretty much don't ever worry about who to put number 1.
Right.
They're third in the nation right now, so we can pretty well lock them in almost every week.
Well, and they pretty much just win the state every year, right? I mean,
at one point last year, they had 14 Division I signees already on their roster, and I've got 19 on the whole team.
Wow.
So you only got 6 on the court, and 14 of them have already signed to play Division I ball.
But through the years, Caldwell County has had a lot of success in volleyball. Several regional championships, always seeming to be in the mix. I think the last poll that I saw had Caldwell County and Henderson County actually tied for number 1 in the second region.
Did, and that's just because we can't find each other. if we could ever square up on the court, we'd get rid of that tie, I believe, in one way or the other, of course. But, we were able to get a little look at them down the hall at the Best of the West tournament, and they got 2 good looks at us. So, we're getting closer. They used to be in this tournament this weekend, but had to get out. So, I was kind of hoping we could meet up with them this weekend, but won't be able to.
Well, that'll be good. Again, the regional tournament coming up later in the year. I think it's at Union County this year. So that'll be a nice trip for everybody. Again, a home game next week against Callaway County on Tuesday, and kind of joked about it with you a couple of times about not having any home games, but there are some home matches coming up. They're just all later in the year.
Right, and if you remember, we used to be back down at Butler. The heat index meant you never played home in August anyway. So we've kind of gotten spoiled by being up here with air conditioning, but the schedule flip-flops every year. I had a lot of people pull me favors when I first took over the head job to come here and start giving home games, and getting on our schedule. So I kind of owe those favors back to do some away games.
Well, and one of the things we haven't mentioned, I think we mentioned it on a show earlier this year when we were talking about the volleyball team, is the All-A Classic kind of got you. We've been in that forever, it seems like, and as a matter of fact, the Caldwell County volleyball program has never lost a second region All-A Classic match to anybody. You guys have won the region every time you've been in it, but this year we had just a couple of too many students, I guess, in school and got booted out of the All-A Classic. But the thing is, you had already made a schedule for this season, assuming that we would be in the All-A Classic.
Right, and I'm still going to go up and watch that. The KVCA has to, that's kind of where we do some of our postseason rankings is based off of that weekend. So I'm still going to be up there, and I will find someone's ear and ask just a couple questions. How do you get eligible? What is the guidelines per se? And can we get it set up to some kind of way where if you're ineligible for 18, then sit out 19?
Yeah.
Because our schedules are made, I've already started working on next year. A couple of handshake agreements of here and there. But if I'm kicked out this year, give me a year or two in advance. Don't tell me in late March that I'm out and then I have to schedule. I was at 27, 28 matches for a long time this last year, and 35 is the max. So to cost the kids 7 or 8 matches, that's another downside of not having very many home games in the month of August.
Well, because you have to leave room for all those potential All-A Classic games.
Yeah.
And
we had 9 on schedule.
Yeah, and once that fell through, well, then you have basically 9 open dates that you have to try to scramble to fill.
Right, and if I can go to Louisville and play 2, if I can go to Owensboro and play 3, I will, as opposed to keeping the young ladies out on Thursday night and traveling all over and every county, out on a school night and things like that. So that kind of gives us a few nights off during the week, but you're still doing some pretty long traveling on the weekends.
And maybe one thing everybody doesn't realize about Daniel is he's a former Tiger football player. So I know you're looking forward to the big game Friday night against Crittenden County coming up.
That was always a game that both schools circle.
Yeah.
It's always been a good rivalry, and actually one of my top 5 here in a minute is a Crittenden County game. So.
Well, that used to be, for a while Caldwell dominated. Then it got pretty competitive. Then Crittenden County had a run where they were kind of dominant there. Recently, though, Caldwell County has turned that around. I think the Tigers have won the last 8 and 12 of the last 13. But Crittenden County is bringing a pretty good team up here, and we're hoping to talk to Chris Evans of the Crittenden Press about that a little bit later on. But we do have a top 5 list that I want to get to real quick, and it's our top 5 favorite Caldwell County football games that we were at. And some of yours you're probably playing.
Yes.
So I'll start with my number 5, and don't have to remember back too far for this one. It was 2013, and that was the year we probably scored 50 or 60 points a game. And the last game of the regular season was Mayfield at Tiger Stadium, and the place was absolutely as packed as I've ever seen it. And that's including the fact that the game was Channel 6 had it on their 6.3 channel. Everybody was there. I mean, it was just incredible atmosphere, incredible crowd. I can't remember if both teams were unbeaten. I think both teams might have been unbeaten. I don't think both teams were number 1 in the state. Yeah,
I think I remember because that was the year after I graduated, and I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that's really what drew out a lot of people. It was a good game.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a huge end of the season matchup. I know Caldwell was ranked number 1 in the state, I think, in 2A at the time, and Mayfield was number 1 in the state in 1A, and it was just a back and forth game, and the teams put on a show. Caldwell County won that game 48-41.
My number 5 is the 2001 when we hosted West Carroll, Tennessee. It was about 4 days after 9/11, and it was just kind of do we play, do we not play kind of idea. And I remember the coaching staff that year. You always run through the banner, you run the 50-yard line, you drop to a knee, you say the Lord's Prayer, and then break and we go for a kickoff. And one of the coaches had a good idea to run directly to the flagpole. And the flag was at half-mast down by the scoreboard that night. And I remember the USA chant once we finished our prayer. And those memories are things that you'll take with you.
Oh, absolutely. I think we even postponed that game a day, didn't we? Wasn't it a Saturday that we played that game?
I was looking last night trying to figure it, and if 9/11 was on a Tuesday, it would have been a Saturday game.
Oh, and a shout-out to Gary Goodacre for the West Carroll game because somebody actually dropped Caldwell County that year on the schedule, and there weren't any Kentucky teams available that anybody could find.
Mm-hmm.
Gary actually started going around on the other states, looking at people who had open dates, found West Carroll, Tennessee, told Coach Gates about it, and Coach Gates called him, and we ended up doing home and home with West Carroll for 2 years instead of having no game that week. So
I was kind of wondering. I was like, the West Carroll, that's not something you always hear. So
it was a strange opponent, and I remember coming back. They threw a little ball to the flats to Kent Wells and had a little peel back block to cut him open, and it was probably the best block I blew that I ever had in high school. And I'm pretty sure Will Brown gave me a concussion on the sideline celebrating.
Oh wow! All right, number 4 for me is going to be the first game for Elijah Sindelar and Jalen Boyd and that crew down at Callaway County. And if anybody remembers that game at all, you're going to remember exactly the final score, 80-62. Caldwell County got out of there with a win with 850 yards of offense. I think Cindy threw for like 550. It was crazy. I think Tess Civils, I don't remember how many catches he had that game and how many. It was 200 yards plus. Just a crazy game. And after the game, everybody's going, I think you had a typo in your score. And I'm like, nope, it was 80-62.
My 4th place is, again, 2001 when we went down to Crittenden County. Coach Hughes had come back and coached that year, and that's just something special to me for the pregame speech that he gave. I really wish that speech had been recorded. The way he was able to motivate us that night, we didn't come over with a win, but the adrenaline that he brought into the locker room that night was one of the more memorable speeches, and I've quoted a lot of it.
Oh yeah.
In my coaching career night. So, also got a 15-yard penalty because I threw a guy in the gong.
Oh no.
Little late hit.
All right, number 3 for me is the 1998 Regional Championship game at Tiger Stadium against Hancock County, a game that the Tigers won 60-30, and Gerald Fuqua just absolutely went off that night. And I remember that because Caldwell had beaten them like the year before, and so before this game on Channel 7 News, they were talking to the Hancock County players, and all they talked about was coming back to Princeton and, getting redemption and getting that back and earning some revenge. And they actually started out pretty good because you remember Travis Atwell was the quarterback and later went on. I think he went to Toledo and then played at UK for a little while, and I think maybe had a concussion issue or something and had to quit. But, man, a heck of a player. And the first 2 times Hancock County had the ball, they just went down the field and scored touchdowns. And I'm like, wow, are we ever going to stop this team? Well, we finally did, and the offense just rolled. And, again, a big crowd at Tiger Stadium and a big win in the regional championship game in 98.
2098, the game at Fort Campbell, 72-8, I believe
Yeah.
it was. The starters played the first series of the second half. That game will go down in my memory because we were down on the goal line and late in the 4th quarter. At that point, they had 20-some quarters straight of not allowing a touchdown. And I looked up, and my brother Brian came running on the field.
Yeah.
And they kind of looked over and said, we've never had 2 brothers on the field, probably since
Oh, wow.
Mark and Andy Davis. And they ran him out there for a couple of plays. And it was pretty neat to be in a huddle with them at that time.
Oh, yeah.
All us little freshmen out there. So that was a fun moment.
All right, for me, number 2 is going to be the 2012 state semifinals when we played Louisville DeSales up at Fairdale, I believe it was. And thank goodness DeSales cut us off some slack and let us play at Fairdale because I think they'd been playing their games downtown at maybe Southern or someplace before that. So that was a whole lot shorter trip if you're a Tiger fan to go up there. And a lot of people were picking DeSales to go to the state championship game. The Tigers jumped out to a huge lead early. I mean, just everything was clicking. DeSales made a huge comeback late, but the Tigers held on 43-31 in one of the coldest football games I can ever remember. But, man, I think half of Princeton had to be there because there were more Caldwell County fans on the visitor side than there were DeSales fans on the home side.
That's happened a lot.
Yeah.
That's happened a whole lot. My number 2, I was in middle school, so I was at this game. It had been a tough week for my family. We'd had a death of a cousin, and we had gone down. My brother Will was a running back that year, and I remember just every time they handed him the ball right up the middle, he was scoring right and left. And I remember the dropping to a knee in an end zone and taking a prayer for that one. And I remember that whole week was just so rough on us, and because he was the same age, my cousin David was the same age as Will, and when we kind of got back to Friday night, everything got back to normal for us. So for just that couple of hours, and I'll always remember that game of how dominant it was, and he's always made the claim that he had an extra blocker.
Oh, yeah. All right, we're up to number 1.
I bet they're the same.
This one was pretty easy. The 1998 state championship game, the fairgrounds, the old Cardinal Stadium in Louisville, Caldwell County and Danville, and the Tigers prevail 38-28 when I think everybody said we'd lose by 4 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big one.
The best quote of last one out, turn out the lights.
Yeah.
I don't, the whole city of Princeton was there, the whole county of Caldwell was there, and former players and alumni, things like that coming back. The thing that sticks out with me in that one was when we walked in, Mayfield was getting beat that year.
Yeah.
And the standing ovation they gave us just walking along the edge of the sideline there, just because it was Western Kentucky. That's kind of what lets you know that people do stick together even if you are rivals. But that ball game was a fun one. Watching Stewart run about an 80-yard, just outrunning every one of them they had was a good show.
I think Jeremy Britt was the big guy at Danville that year, and I think he was on Stewart's heels all the way down the sideline, but he never caught him.
He wasn't going to.
No. Stewart was one of those kids and went on to have a great career at Murray State University. I always said he was as fast as he needed to be. They would talk about trying to line him up and run a dash or whatever, and I think the question always was Gerald quicker or was Stewart quicker? And I think Stewart, I don't know if he could beat Gerald in a dash, but hand him a football and take off, and they were probably pretty close.
Right. He had a long stride.
Yeah. But that was fun, a fun memory, fun to look back at these games, Hate to leave anybody's game out. I know everybody probably has a different top 5 list, and, man, so many great wins during the season and during the years. And, I even remember going up to Western a few years ago for the state championship game, and it didn't turn out the way we wanted, but that was a heck of a run. That was after that DeSales game. Right. And I still say if that Newport Central Catholic game had been 30 seconds longer, we would have won it because we just ran out of time.
Right. Well, it shows the strength of the program when we can't sit here. We've had 9 different games.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that doesn't cover a third of it.
And I know a lot of people are going to be going, well, what about the 1963 championship team? That was just a little before me, so I didn't see it. I'm sure it's right there. And,
there was a caveat to your top 5 list. You had to be there.
Yeah, had to be there, yes. I've actually seen a few highlights from that game, and 14-7 over Fort Thomas Highlands, which has been a state power forever. I mean, that was a huge win, and, you have to give that 1963 team some credit because back then I think there were 3 classes, and the big class was all Louisville. So the rest of the state was divided up in 1A and 2A, and Caldwell was 2A, which was, the bigger schools.
Right.
So it had to play the Owensboros and Paducah Tillmans and those kind of schools just to get there. So that was a pretty big deal, too. All right, Daniel, appreciate you coming in, and thanks for doing a top 5 list for us today. And good luck to the volleyball team. Like I said, a lot of home games coming up, and everybody needs to get out there and check out the volleyball team.
Appreciate it. And we do have several milestones coming up. We passed one this past
Yeah.
weekend at Christian Fellowship with Savannah Tays getting her 1,000th, and that's not going to be. She's already climbing to 1,500. Kendall Prowse around 600 or 700 right now, headed that way. Both of our hitters, our outside hitters, are climbing up to milestone markers. So, we've got a good year. I'll be getting. I think we're at 91 wins as a coaching staff.
Oh, wow.
The way it is in place. So, there's a lot of good things coming up in the next couple of weeks. But that game Tuesday night, when we get back home, they're so excited. And they practice in there every day, but it's a different atmosphere when the fans fill up and we get going. So they're really excited for Tuesday night.
Well, we've seen some great players come through the program. Got some great players now. Like I've told you before, it just amazes me the skill level that we have, not just from 1 or 2 players, but from the whole team on a consistent basis.
Right. We don't believe in reloading.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. And this year we went down and got a couple of 7th graders, and yesterday for 2.5 hours the 7th graders were on the floor with the juniors and seniors, and mixing it up and held to the same standards. So they've gotten better and better every day, and the older group has really pushed them. So that's our how we sustain runs over the years is we don't divide our team up.
Well, I was going to say I've seen instances in the past where the JV team gave the varsity all it wanted.
That happens about every day. And,
yeah.
I kind of step back sometimes and let them, hey, if somebody's going to block, if somebody throws a freshman blocks a senior, I'll let you let them know it in practice.
Yeah.
I'll let you stand up a little bit, but because knowing next play they're probably going to get the better of them.
All right, so this weekend it's the Queens of the Court event up around the Hardin County area, several different gyms up there. It's Central Hardin's tournament. And then Tuesday, Callaway County at home. Everybody get out and watch the volleyball team.
Be a good one.
All right, thanks, Daniel.
Sounds great. Okay, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have Chris Evans from the Crittenden
Excellent.
Press. You're listening to the Sideline Report.
The doctor is in at Health First Community Health Center. Dr. Jamie Perry is ready to care for the community, providing primary care services at 1100 South Jefferson Street here in Princeton. Dr. Perry is accepting new patients, and walk-ins are always welcome. At Health First Community Health Center, we are not just another doctor's office, we are your medical home. Call us toll-free at 1-877-667-7017.
Hancock's Neighborhood Market on Commerce Street in Cadiz is the place to shop for delicious homemade goodness. Hancock's makes their own fresh chicken salad, pimento cheese, salads, and a variety of mouthwatering desserts, sure to please your entire family. While at Hancock's, be sure to visit their meat department for the best selection of USDA choice meats in the area. Hancock's Neighborhood Market in Cadiz, hometown homemade goodness, and the Hancock name you know and trust for quality for your family. Hancock's Neighborhood Market on Commerce Street in Cadiz.
Since 1978, Perry's Floors and More has been selling, installing, and servicing homeowners throughout Western Kentucky with quality flooring and workmanship. Perry's Floors and More carries luxury vinyl plank and luxury vinyl tile, carpet, window treatments, and more. Quality brands like Mannington, Shaw, Tarkett, Beaulieu, and Flexitech. There is a reason why we say you can walk on our reputation. Come see Bill and Lucy at 127 West Market Street or call 270-365-9869.
The doctor is in at Health First Community Health Center. Dr. Jamie Perry is ready to care for the community, providing primary care services at 1100 South Jefferson Street here in Princeton. Dr. Perry is accepting new patients, and walk-ins are always welcome. At Health First Community Health Center, we are not just another doctor's office, we are your medical home. Call us toll-free at 1-877-667-7017.
Hancock's Neighborhood Market on Commerce Street in Cadiz is the place to shop for delicious homemade goodness. Hancock's makes their own fresh chicken salad, pimento cheese, salads, and a variety of mouthwatering desserts, sure to please your entire family. While at Hancock's, be sure to visit their meat department for the best selection of USDA choice meats in the area. Hancock's Neighborhood Market in Cadiz, hometown homemade goodness, and the Hancock name you know and trust for quality for your family. Hancock's Neighborhood Market on Commerce Street in Cadiz. And time now is 9:44. You're listening to the Sideline Report with Todd Griffin, and we're really hoping Chris Evans. So we'll push it up and see. Are you there, Chris?
I am indeed.
Look at that. I'm better than I thought. Well, I'll turn it over to you and Todd then. So Todd,
Captain America.
Yeah. Hey, that's what I thought at first when I heard it.
Hey, Chris, good morning. Thanks for being on the show with us.
Good morning, Todd.
Big game coming up at Tiger Stadium this week with Crittenden County and Caldwell County. A couple of top 10 ranked teams in the state going at it, and I know from a Crittenden County standpoint, just a big game for you guys, and I know you guys are looking forward to coming up here and seeing what can be done.
You know it is, Todd. It's a big game for Crittenden. It's one that everybody always circles on the calendar over here. I know. Over the years, historically, it's probably not as big a game for Caldwell County as it is for Crittenden, but there's been some years when it's been kind of a heated rivalry, and I know people over here come out for it and think it's one of the premier games. Of course, I think that's the tip of the cap to Caldwell County because we feel like it's pretty good measuring stick of where we're at when we can go and compete with Caldwell County, a perennial challenger, no matter the division they're in. So it's a game that everybody looks forward to.
Well, I think both teams are probably looking to find out some things this week. Crittenden County is off to a 2-0 start and a couple of big, impressive wins, but at the same time, I'm not sure how strong Stewart County, Tennessee is this year. Not sure how strong Trigg County is. Caldwell County's had some losses, but they've played some teams that are pretty good, but they've had trouble taking care of the football at times, and The red zone has been an issue. So I think this is a week where both teams are just trying to find out a little about themselves.
I totally agree with you. I think all the coaches are looking at it this way too. We'll see. Get an idea on what Trigg really has, because I think they're not a bad football team at all. They've got some good kids over there, and I think we just kind of stunned them early. But that's a game Crittenden felt like they should have won last year too. We just let it get away from us, and they felt pretty good going into this game, and I think went in with a lot of confidence, especially like I said, after beating Stewart County like they did. Of course, that's 2 years in a row. We've kind of rolled them up pretty good. Fulton County, I think, has got Stewart County tonight, so that'll, of course, Fulton County's in our district, and be a good opportunity to see what Fulton County's got too. But this is going to be a measuring stick, I think, for certainly both teams. And you're right, Caldwell County plays such a much tougher schedule than we do. Of course, we're a Class A team, and you guys are 3A, and rightfully so. Y'all have to run the gamut on in that 3A division. Man, that's a tough row.
Especially this year, it's going to be Paducah Tillman's come along, and the good thing for Caldwell County is next year it gets to go back to Class 2A. The bad thing is Mayfield is there, so it never gets any easier.
And that's what people are saying. Other people in the 2A division are saying, no, now we have to deal with Mayfield and Caldwell. That's what they're saying.
Oh, yeah. Well, I knew going into the season for Caldwell County that there was maybe a situation where Caldwell County could be better than last year, but not have as good a record. And I think we've kind of seen that this year, because Christian County, I'm not going to say they were better than last year, but they always have a ton of athletes. I think Graves County is just as good or better than last year. I think Hopkinsville is clearly better than last year. And I think Crittenden County, while it had a great season last year, is a lot better this year too.
Oh, no doubt. I think we're playing, our guys, our leaders last year were mostly the junior class, and this year they're seniors. And, Hunter Boone being at the top of the list, and Dossett, Ethan Dossett, and Gavin Dickerson, those guys, they've grown up a lot. I think they could probably, don't kind of keep this quiet and don't tell Coach Thompson, but I believe he could miss the game, man, and they would never miss a beat.
Oh,
These
wow.
guys, they understand it. I'm just kidding, of course. But Hunter Boone's like a coach on the field, and he's grown so much in that position over the years. But he's always been a very mature type kid. I'll tell you, he reminds me a lot of Shane Burns. I was around Shane some back whenever my son played Little League football, and he would come out and help us when we had those travel teams that would go up and play in the Kentucky Cup. And Andy Davis and Leighton, his boy, who's a nose guard now, get some nice statewide attention. And I always called Leighton Drew. He's a great kid, and we go way back with some of them. But the point I was going to make is Hunter's kind of like Shane. He's been mature, and I always thought Shane was too. And he helped us when he was younger. He actually would come out. He would finish football practice. He would come out to the Little League field and work with those younger kids, and just a very wonderful young gentleman, Christian kid, and super guy. And I think that's one of the reasons this team is they followed behind him. And Dossett's the same way. All these kids who are seniors have, they've been with the program the whole time, and they've just accepted, embraced this leadership role. And it's just, it's one of those years. It could be a magical year for us.
Well, that
we'll
leadership
see this
thing,
week.
Yeah, you can't overstate the leadership thing. And I've always said that if you look at any successful high school team, there's strong senior leadership, and sometimes a strong junior class can kind of take over that role, but you just don't really have a good high school team without having that leadership there someplace. That's
right, and seniors make such, when you got that big senior class, it's such a big difference. And I'll tell you, we also have, and I'm sure you know this too, is our sophomore class is very similar to that senior class. And, I think a lot of the people around here have had this season in particular It's been talked about for probably 3 or 4 or 5 years, because those who are observers of football in Crittenden County, if you will, have had their eye on this group of guys, and knew that when Hunter and Ethan and and that crew were seniors, and Peyton Riley, and the list goes on and on. We knew we had a good nucleus to build around, and then the sophomore class may even be better. Now I'm not sure that group has Hunter Boone in it, because he's been a very special quarterback for us and has broken all the records, all the passing records. Of course, all these teams running this new Tony Franklin offense, who's not going to be breaking passing records?
and you run a lot more plays now, too.
Well, a lot more plays, and I told Coach Thompson yesterday, we were talking, I've had the same stat sheet. I've been doing this since back in the 80s, Todd. Like you go way back, too. But I had this stat sheet, and over on the left-hand side there was 25 lines down the left-hand side for rushing. And over on the right-hand side, this is an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and over on the right-hand side, there's about six to eight, I think, slots for lines for receiving. Well, that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, you got to have a lot more space.
I need a lot more space for the receiving than I do for the rushing now. And it's changed the complexion of high school football, and all the way down. I mean, even all the way down to the middle school teams are all running this now, and even in Little League. I saw, of course, we played Union County in a middle school football game. I was up there last week, and Union County's B team, their middle school B team, I bet they didn't run the ball 5 times. They were throwing it around.
Oh, wow. But the biggest thing I've noticed from watching Caldwell County through the years, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, we would run maybe 40 or 45 plays a game. Their goal now is to run 80. That's the tempo they want to set, and they want to run a bunch of plays. And if you look at the Caldwell County record book, a lot of those records are held by guys who played the last 10 years, just because there are more plays. And even that happens on the defense a little bit, because the game gets so sped up that you end up with defense out there more often too.
Right. We were talking about that the other day. I guess Sindelar holds all your passing records now, and
just about all of them.
He probably chipped Childress out of some of those, didn't he?
Yes, but here's the thing. People don't remember that. I think sometimes that Stuart Childress was only the quarterback here for 1 year, because Bradley Stallings was the quarterback before that, and Stuart was a year behind him. So he just kind of fell into that quarterback spot for 1 year. But, man, that was a heck of a year.
Heck of a year.
Yeah. But then Elijah comes along, and he started his first game as a freshman. He played every game for 4 years. Yeah. I don't know that that's going to happen again.
Yeah.
Somebody who started years, and he's in the Kentucky High School Athletic Association record books with over 12,000 yards passing, a state record with 140-something touchdown passes. That was just one of those careers that, like I said, I talked to Shane Burns about that one time, because he was putting up some big numbers too, but there was no way he could get to Elijah's numbers, because Shane started as a sophomore and a junior, and he didn't have that freshman season to kind of push those stats up.
And that's what, we seldom have a quarterback that's played, I don't know, I can't remember back one that was started all 4 years. Of course, Hunter started when he was a sophomore, and then last year's a junior, and now he's approaching the 5,000 passing yard mark, which is the threshold to get into that state record book. In fact, I think he only needs a handful, and probably will get there. It's only 60 yards or so. He needs to eclipse that 5,000 mark. And we've got several guys too, that's been showing up in the state statistics every week, and one of them that maybe gets overlooked a little bit, or people may be paying attention now, is Tyler Boone, Hunter's younger brother, who's a sophomore, and he's way up there in tackles. Of course, he's playing middle linebacker, this year. He stepped in last year when Gavin Dickerson got hurt. Of course, a lot of those folks over at Caldwell County remember Gavin Dickerson. They all grew up playing on those travel football teams together. I know he played with the Riley boys, and Gavin's a special player. But when he went down last year, it's about the middle of the season, and Tyler Boone was a freshman, and they stuck him in the middle linebacker. Everybody's eyes kind of open. Said, "Wow, he can really play." And this year, gosh, he's picked up some speed, and it's just unbelievable what he's doing as a sophomore. And Coach Thompson said the other day, he and I don't know how he compares this. I'm sure he hadn't seen ever a sophomore in the state, but just a comment like this coming from a coach tells how much respect he has for Tyler Boone. He said, I think we have the best sophomore linebacker in the state of Kentucky.
Yeah, that's big.
And, that's saying a lot. But and again, I think that's coach talking, and he obviously hadn't seen them all. But just to say that, and I understand what he means. The implications of just saying something like that. He means he's pretty special, and I think he's going to be. And all those guys, there's some more back there. Caden McAllister, whose family is from over there too. Caden is over Caldwell, and Caden is a great player, and he plays that hybrid linebacker, secondary type guy. And then Braxton Winders is another really good sophomore linebacker. He plays weak side linebacker, and of course then Gavin Dickerson plays strong side. But it's a pretty special group for Crittenden, and I think you'll agree we've never really been known for a great defense over the years, especially in the secondary. And this year, that's kind of we got a lot more skill position players probably on this team than we've ever had on one team that I can ever remember. And they're pretty good up front too. Most everybody is a returning starter up there, and those who aren't are coming along pretty good. And this is a team that obviously everybody over here thinks has a chance maybe to certainly get back to maybe the quarterfinals and maybe beyond.
Yeah, I was going to ask what do the playoffs look like over there, and who would be the teams kind of standing in the way if there's somebody over there?
Well, number one, you got to look at Russellville. Russellville is they're clearly a team that they're under a new coach. Mikey Benton's over there. He played at Russellville and went on and had a pretty nice career at the University of Kentucky. And he's back, and they probably they're just now embracing the spread offense. They've always run some other, they've been a wing tee team for a while, and been pretty successful with that.
Yeah,
but
they're always pretty run heavy. Yeah.
Yeah, with the athletes they have, I think once they kind of get used to running this, and of course we play them late in the year, and they're going to be a little better prepared. I think maybe they're a little disappointed in some of the outings they've had so far, just guessing, based on their scores. But I know they've got a tough game this week with Logan County. But that's a good team, obviously a good team. And then when you get beyond that, Campbellsville is pretty good this year. They're going to be pretty good. There's a lot of teams. If you can get out of this region and you get up there, it doesn't get any easier. Bishop Brosser's a good team. And of course, if you get to the semifinals on this end of the state, you've always got Mr. Beechwood standing in the way. And it's just almost impossible to compete against a machine like that, So you have to be, you have to understand what your goals can be set, where they can be set, and I think everybody figures if we can get to that Beechwood game again like we did in 2008 in the semifinals, and who knows? You just never know. It's kind of interesting. I was talking with Gage Courtney on the podcast that I do over here Monday. Gage Courtney is our defensive coordinator now, doing just a super job. And he was on that 2008 team that went to the state semis and played Beechwood up there in the frigid cold. But that's one of the things I think is a part of the recipe of success that Crittenden is having right now. Certainly it's the players, but then this coaching staff. Everybody on this coaching staff played here, and you know what kind of passion and commitment and dedication that builds in a coaching staff. And I mean, they bleed blue, and it starts with Coach Thompson. You know, he's the first Crittenden County graduate to ever coach here, coach the high school football team anyway. And then you got Gage Courtney, the Berry boys are here, Brian Qualls, Nick Castiller, Noah Dickerson, Mason Myers, and all those guys, Jared Brown, and the list just goes on, and Jacob Courtney. So it's a pretty special group, and just the cohesion that they bring as a unit, it's pretty neat to watch.
Yeah, I think definitely Crittenden County is set up to have just a great season, and I think we're going to have a great football game Friday night at Tiger Stadium. Like I think I've said this for 3 weeks running now, but it's kind of difficult to handicap the games because there are just so many questions. And the good thing is we can go out on the field Friday night and maybe figure some of those things out.
Yeah, Todd. I think everybody's here's pumped. You know, they think there's not too many years we feel like that we've got a shot in this game. You know, a lot of times we go into it a heavy underdog. And still, I mean, this year, obviously, clearly we're the underdog, but I think people feel like we've got as good a shot this year as we've had in a long time.
Well, the ball bounces strange sometimes. I mean, you just never know those football games. And like I said, Caldwell County has had some red zone issues this year. In the 2 losses, they've turned the ball over. I think turnovers were a big issue last year for Crittenden County in the game down there. And I think those kind of things will play a big part again this week. Just like I said last week before Caldwell County played Hopkinsville, I think the team that plays the cleaner game will win, and that's kind of the way it looks again this week.
Yeah, you know, that's one thing that Gage Courtney has brought to this defense this year is a huge emphasis on turnovers in takeaways. For the defense, and they have now this weekly competition in games. They have a garbage can over on the sideline. You may see it. A lot of the fans ask, "What is that garbage can?" They painted it gold and got some stuff scrawled on it. Every time they get a turnover, they go over and throw a ball in that bucket. And then at the end of the game, they have this huge old cowboy type rodeo belt buckle. And whoever has the most takeaways gets to wear that belt buckle and belt to school all week. So it's pretty neat, you know, just creating some of that enthusiasm and competition among the kids.
That's kind of one of those hidden stats. You know, we talk about the passing and receiving and rushing and all those things, but I think a lot of times if you check that turnover stat, I bet the team that wins has that thing in their favor most of the time.
It's certainly big, and as you see, you know, we've had our own problems with turnover. You know, Hunter had a lot of interceptions last year, and he had 3 down at Trigg County last week. One of those was tipped, and then the other one was a dual possession type deal, and they gave it to the Trigg kid. I think Crittenden felt like Peyton Riley had the ball in his hands and should have been his ball, but the other one, the first one, was a pretty ill-advised pass. I don't know what Hunter did. I think it was kind of a busted player. He made a bad read, and we kind of had our backs to the end zone. He turned and threw it down the line. You know, if you're playing Trigg County, your back's to the end zone. You may not want to throw that ball laterally down the line because there's always some quick kid over in the corner and nobody in between him and the goal line. You know.
Yeah, Trigg County is definitely big on jumping those screens. I think every time they play Caldwell, there's a turnover like that early in the game where they just flat jump it, and you know, there's nothing between them and the end zone and grass after they make that catch.
Right. And you know, that's something we've obviously got to cut down on this week against Caldwell County. As you said, I think the first half last year was pretty competitive, and then the wheels just came off with turnovers.
All right, so Caldwell County and Crittenden County, 7 o'clock Friday night at Tiger Stadium. Again, as I mentioned, both teams ranked in the top 10. Should be one of the better games in the area. Want everybody to come out expecting a big crowd at Tiger Stadium. Hopefully the weather will cooperate with us. We've been pretty fortunate so far this year in that area, and Chris, thanks for sticking around this morning. We had a few phone issues, but we got those fixed, and we're glad we could get you on.
No problem. Enjoyed doing it, Todd. Thank you. See you Friday night.
And we know you share a name with the guy who plays Captain America, and we're glad to have Captain America on the show this morning.
Yeah, like I told you, it's tough to handle this dual role as a superhero and a humble weekly newspaper guy.
All right, Chris. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you Friday night.
All right. Thank you. Goodbye.
Again, that was Chris Evans of the Crittenden Press, and Crittenden County fired up for their football season, as they absolutely should be. They've moved into the top 10 in Class A. I guarantee everybody at Caldwell County that Crittenden County is coming up here Friday night thinking they're winning a football game.
Oh, it's going to be a good game.
Yeah.
It's definitely one to go watch. So
the Tigers have had some issues. I bet if you ask any person on that Tiger football team, though, they would say, yeah, we should be 3-0. And instead, 1-2. That's a little bit of a disappointment, but those early games against tough competition, you use those to try to get better.
I mean, it's a learning experience.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to win every game, but
not everybody can.
No, that's
work out.
Yeah. Every time you play a game, there's a winner and there's not a winner.
Yeah.
So that's the way it turns out. But 7 o'clock, it's Hall of Fame night at Tiger Stadium, and believe the Hall of Fame ceremony is going to be at halftime. And got our Hall of Fame list here: William Freilich, Dan Hughes, Chris Cochran, Garrick Sigler, Mark Hooks, Jason Vaughn, and Carl Copeland. And all those guys are very deserving. Appreciate their playing careers and everything those people do for Caldwell County football. And some of these people probably should have been in the Hall of Fame already. Unfortunately, for about 6 years, we didn't do the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
So tickled to death we got that going again last year. And this year's class just looks fantastic. And, there's other names that need to be in there, and hopefully we can address that in the near future too.
Yeah. Something to look forward to.
Crittenden County, 7 o'clock at Tiger Stadium. I do want to mention some college football notes from last week. Elijah Sindelar with a rough opener, and Purdue lost to Northwestern 31-27 last Thursday. But, I still feel like Sindelar is eventually going to be the guy with the Boilermakers. Made a couple of bad throws the other night and kind of hurt the Boilermakers early in that game. They just couldn't quite come back. This Saturday, 11 o'clock versus Eastern Michigan is the game for Purdue. That's on the Big Ten Network. Again, I think both quarterbacks will play this week, Sindelar and David Blau. No word yet, at least that I've seen, on who's going to start, so we'll see how that goes.
Building suspense, I guess.
We mentioned Jalen Boyd earlier. Some of those great Tiger games of the last few years that we had mentioned. Just always remember the big game he had up at DeSales. I mean, the Tiger offense was definitely on display that night, and then the defense made some big stops late for the big win up there in the state semifinals. Jalen is on the roster at Lindsey Wilson. Actually got into their game at Edward Waters in Florida on Saturday. That was a big win for Lindsey. 50-13 was the final score in that game. I know Jalen caught a pass and returned a couple of kickoffs, and that kid can flat out play. He's a junior up there now. I can see big things for him. And Lindsey Wilson ranked number 5 in NAIA, so
really?
A pretty good program for them. D. Kane got into the game last week for Western Kentucky at Wisconsin. Of course, the Hilltoppers just kind of outgunned in that one. 34-3 was the final score up at Camp Randall. Western is at home this week against Maine at 6:30 Saturday evening. That game is on ESPN Plus for everybody who has that. The Kentucky Wildcats got a big win over Central Michigan. 35-20 was the final score. Turnovers hurting the Cats in that one, which, as we just talked, turnovers always play a big part. Kentucky, if you look at the stats, kind of dominated the play in that game, but because of some turnovers that led to some easy points for Central Michigan, that game was closer than it probably should have been, although that seems to be sort of the mantra for the UK football team.
Yeah, running thing.
The game's closer than it should have been. The Cats are at Florida this week, 6:30 Saturday evening on the SEC Network. And as much as I would love to sit here and say, man, the Cats are going to end that long streak to Florida, I just don't see it this week. I wish I could. I wish I had the optimism, but And it's really weird because, some teams have gone down to Florida and won. Missouri's won down there recently. South Carolina. There was a smaller school, Georgia Southern or somebody like that, went to Florida and won. But Kentucky just can't seem to figure out the Gators. And last year, Kentucky had a great chance up at Kroger Field to pull that game off. I still call it Commonwealth Stadium.
I know. When you said Kroger Field, I was like, that just doesn't sound right.
It doesn't sound right at all. But Kentucky had a chance to win that game. Not once, but twice, left receivers completely uncovered that went for Florida touchdowns. I think after the game, even Florida was like, how did we win that game? It's the longest losing streak. It's at 31 games, or maybe it's longer than that, and I just quit counting at 31. I can't remember.
31's a good number to stop at.
But, yeah,
I would have stopped a little bit before that.
You think of how many times Kentucky was right there and had a chance. And a few years ago, I actually thought Kentucky got the short end of a couple of calls at Florida that maybe cost them the game. Last year, it was Kentucky's own calls that cost them the game, but just a big game at Florida. Of course, Louisville had a rough way to start with Alabama.
Yeah.
Alabama's probably going to win the national championship again and forever as long as Nick Saban is there and, is enthused about recruiting and coaching, because I don't see anybody catching them. But I think Louisville has Indiana State this week, so maybe a chance for Louisville to get healthy and back on the winning track this week. So that gets us caught up on most of the college football going on.
Yeah.
Of course, if anybody saw our picks in the paper this week, surprisingly, everybody went with Caldwell County again to beat Crittenden County. It just every
Those
week,
leader people.
every week the panel just seems to really like Caldwell County for some reason.
It's
so
funny how that works out. Isn't
so
it?
there's that. There's some other big games. Of course, everybody picked Florida to beat Kentucky. But I always say, sometimes when you're looking to end a streak like that, it's the game you don't see coming that ends up ending the streak. So,
it makes it that much sweeter.
So, I'm trying to talk myself into a win this week. So sometimes you just don't see it coming. It comes out of the blue, and that'd be a good chance for Kentucky to get that win. Everybody picked Louisville this week. Everybody picked Western. Everybody picked Central Arkansas to beat Murray State. So there's that. But the big game, Caldwell County and Crittenden County, it's going to be Hall of Fame night. I guarantee you every Crittenden County fan that can make that trip is going to.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be a big crowd, big showing on the visitor side this week. I think there'll be a lot of Caldwell County fans there, especially with it being Black Patch weekend. A lot of times, a lot of people will come back for the parade, for the football game.
Definitely a homecoming. Good opportunity to really get
Absolutely.
the whole experience.
So
hopefully the weather will participate.
I hope so. Or cooperate.
Cooperate.
Yeah.
I was like, participate doesn't sound right.
Well, the weather will participate, I guess, either way, right?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
It's always part of the show. But and tonight's schedule, we've got Caldwell County girls soccer at home against Owensboro. That's my plan to be there. The Lady Tigers are 4-6, but they've played some pretty tough teams early in the season. They play an Owensboro team that's 3-4, so I think that's going to be a pretty competitive ball game.
Yeah, they play Madisonville North Hopkins Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
That was a little bit of a heartbreaker.
Yeah, Madisonville back to being pretty strong again.
Yeah.
Caldwell County's had some strong teams the last couple of years, and Lady Tigers had actually taken 4 straight from Madisonville, which was pretty impressive because Madisonville has always had strong soccer teams.
Yeah, they were always formidable when we played.
Yeah. So Madisonville's, back up there, and I think that was 7-0 the final score in that game. So the good news is the Lady Tigers have some time to, keep working, get better.
Get back on
and,
track, yeah.
Sometimes those postseason games end up being a whole lot tighter and a lot closer than the regular season meetings do. So we'll see if those two teams meet up again, how that works out. The Tigers, the boys team, soccer is at Callaway County tonight. Of course, volleyball is off until Friday and Saturday at the Queens of the Court. That's the Central Hardin tournament. So just, it's a busy schedule. It always stays busy. Once again, want to thank Daniel Cortner for coming in and, kind of threw that at him at the last minute, and he was gracious enough not just to come in, but to show up a few minutes earlier, which, it really worked out for us this morning as we had some issues with the phone, but we got those fixed.
Once again, technology has outsmarted me.
Technology is great until it doesn't work.
Until it doesn't work. Until it works against you, yeah.
And we really appreciate Chris Evans of the Crittenden Press hanging in there with us. And
I appreciate that.
Got to him a little late, but got some good information from him on Crittenden County. And, Crittenden County really looks at this as a big rivalry game. It's a big game for Caldwell County as well. I think Caldwell County sometimes looks at, some of the bigger schools on the schedule as, Mayfield and even Hopkinsville and Christian County and some of those games as being the bigger games just because it's bigger schools. But it's a big game this week, especially for Caldwell County, because you don't want to go to 1-3.
Yeah.
Now, a few years ago, they started 0-3, ended up being 8-5, and going to the regional championship game. So you can come back from a slow start. Those losses early in the season aren't fatal unless you let them be. So you just have to keep working hard. The Tigers will be without Trell Riley this week, and that's obviously one of the best, arguably the best player on the team, one of the quickest players, maybe the quickest. He received 2 unsportsmanlike conduct penalties last week, and we're still trying to figure out what happened with the second one because it didn't look like he did anything. The officials looked like they were on that before the game even started, so I'm not sure what's happening with that either. Not a very professional effort, I didn't think, from the officials at last week's game, so hopefully we don't have that issue this week. But the Tigers will be playing without Trell Riley, and that's going to make what appeared to be a very tight competitive game to begin with.
That much time.
Yeah, just a little bit more intense for the Tigers this week, but somebody will have to step up. Again, the Tigers are very close. You look at the 1-2 record, and I think sometimes people want to maybe jump off the ship at that point, but the Tigers are very close to being 3-0. I mean, if you go back and look at the numbers they put up offensively last week, the numbers were good, really good, had more first downs than Hopkinsville, but when you make 5 trips into the red zone and get 0 points out of it, and you end up it was a 2-touchdown game, but Hopkinsville kind of put that game away with a touchdown late. So, the Tigers were driving late with a chance to really make it interesting and just turn the ball over on downs after getting to the 2. Turned it over once in the end zone, turned it over once at the 4-yard line. You just can't do those things and come up empty in a close game against a really good Hopkinsville team that I think is, again, better than last year and pull those games out. So for Caldwell, it's just, you got to clean those things up. I think the personnel on the team is really, really good. Again, it's just the turnovers, the red zone problems. You got to get those fixed, and if the Tigers do, they're going to be a really good football team and have a really great season. If they don't get those things fixed, it's going to be a fight all the way to the end.
That's like you said, they still got a lot of opportunity. There's still a lot of season left.
Oh, absolutely.
It starts this Friday, so.
Well, a chance to get better on Friday. I don't think this is a must-win game for either side. Crittenden County could lose this week and still have a fantastic season. I think they could, you never know when you get to the postseason. You get on a run and everything clicks and things happen, and the next thing you look up and you're in the state championship game playing for a title. That happened to Caldwell County just a few years ago. The Tigers ended the season at Mayfield and just a horrible performance down there. Got absolutely drubbed. I think it was 41-7 or 48-7, and I think everybody or a lot of people thought, hey, maybe the season's kind of over at that point. And you looked up 5 weeks later, and the Tigers are taking the field at Western Kentucky for the state championship game.
Me and some of my friends, that was my first semester at UK. We drove down to watch that game.
Yeah.
If nothing else, we had a good turnout. I tell you, Caldwell always delivers when it comes to fans.
But you just never know. I mean, that's why you don't ever give up on a season.
It ain't over till it's over.
And we're 3 weeks in. Crittenden County's 2-0, Caldwell County's 1-2. Both teams still. I think this speaks to how well regarded the Tigers are. Is the fact that they're still ranked in the top 10. Number 8 in the Bluegrass Preps poll, number 10 in the AP poll in Class 3A. After losing a couple of games early, so people realize they've played some tough teams, and yes, again, you could ask the Tigers, and they'd say, you know what, we should have played better. And, yeah, there were some areas they probably should have played better. At times they've looked really good, and at times they just need to work on some things. So we're going to find out a lot this week, I think. And then Caldwell County has Henderson County coming into Tiger Stadium, part of our nice 3-game homestand that we've got going on. Yeah, I love those home games.
Saves you on gas mileage.
Yeah, got the Hall of Fame ceremony this week, and then next week, speaking of the 1998 state championship team, we'll be honoring those guys next week against Henderson County here at Tiger Stadium. And Henderson, much improved, and they're, I think, in the 6A top 10 in the AP poll this week. And then after that, it really gets real because Paducah-Tillman is next, and after the Henderson game down at Paducah, and that's going to be a big district clash. So, again, still time for the Tigers to work on things, get better. Crittenden County this week, Henderson County next week, and again, there's a lot of season left and a lot of ways for Caldwell County to go, a lot of ways for Crittenden County to go. I think both teams are going to have really good years.
Yeah, it's exciting, and it's like you said, it's nice to have all those home games right there in a row. So
well, we played those first
fans.
2 on the road, and then you get the next 3 at home, and 5 of the next 6 at home. The only road trip during that time is the Paducah-Tillman game, and I still think that's going to be, whoever wins that game is probably going to win the district. So that's how big that game is in a couple of weeks.
And, of course, the game, Crittenden County, we play this Friday here at Tiger Stadium. And, of course, we will broadcast that game live right here at WPKY 103.3 FM, 1580 AM. Dennis Stevens, Bob Hayes with the call. There, however, will be no live stream of the game, but you can watch that footage after the game is over on our website, WPKYonline.com. So, all right. Anything
get to the
else
stadium. Just get to the stadium. Lots of action going on. Get out and support the teams. And, again, I think that's just going to be a great atmosphere Friday night. The Hall of Fame game always draws a big crowd to honor those guys. So I would be disappointed if the Caldwell County sideline's not packed. With Crittenden County at 2-0, and really looking forward to this game. That visitor sideline's going to be packed. It's just going to be a great high school football game.
Yeah, can't beat it.
Absolutely.
Anything else you got this morning, Todd?
I think that's everything. A very busy show, and it didn't always go as planned, but I think we got a lot of information out there. Yeah, and we got through it. And, again, just thanks to Daniel Cortner for coming in.
Yeah.
Thanks to Chris Evans for joining us on the phone. We really appreciate that. And just as always, thanks to everybody for listening. We really appreciate it. And I always get a big kick out of people who come up and say, I'm not really a big sports fan, but listen to the show.
Hey,
so
there you go.
Really like that, so I appreciate
Converting some people. Well, thank you again. Once again, that was Todd Griffin with his weekly Sideline Report. You're listening to your local hometown radio station, WPKY 103.3 FM. Time now is 10:23. Another last look at your weather, 79 degrees, a few clouds in downtown Princeton. Today, 40% chance of showers and thunderstorms. Otherwise, mostly cloudy skies today, highs near 88. Tonight, that 40% chance of showers and thunderstorms continues. Mostly cloudy skies, lows around 71. And looking ahead to Black Patch days. Friday, 50% chance of showers and thunderstorms, mostly cloudy, high near 87. Friday night, 50% chance of showers and thunderstorms continues. Mostly cloudy skies, lows around 71. And looking ahead to Black Patch Saturday, 60% chance of showers and thunderstorms. Otherwise, cloudy skies Saturday with a high near 82. That's it for your morning news hour on the Tiger. Be sure to stay tuned, listen to some great music. We'll be back in you with Audrey Lamb for your new news hour. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.
The doctor is in at Health First Community Health Center. Dr. Jamie Perry is ready to care for the community, providing primary care services at